When fans talk about what ruined Two and a Half Men, most immediately point to the 2011 exit of Charlie Sheen, Charlie Harper, but the truth is the final nail in the coffin was hammered in much earlier. The CBS sitcom ran from 2003 to 2015, becoming one of the biggest ratings hits of its era and earning its place in TV comedy history thanks to its sharp writing, irreverent humor, and a cast led by Sheen, John Cryer, as Alan Harper, and Angus T. Jones, as Jake. Charlie Sheen's highly public and controversial departure during Season 8 marked a turning point. While Ashton Kutcher stepped in as Walden Schmidt and the show continued for 4 more seasons, many longtime viewers insist it was never quite the same again. However, the truth is that Two and a Half Men had already started unraveling long before Charlie Sheen left the building. There was indeed a major change that damaged the core of the series, but it wasn't the replacement of Charlie. It was a slow burn problem the show never addressed, the mishandling and eventual loss of Jake Harper. The kid who was supposed to be the half in Two and a Half Men quietly became the sitcom's most underappreciated pillar. His character was sidelined, caricatured, and eventually removed entirely, years before Sheen's exit. This was when the real damage was done, and when the downfall of Two and a Half Men truly began. Two and a Half Men failed Jake long before Charlie Sheen left the show. Jake's character was mishandled as he grew up, and the show never figured out what to do with him. The early seasons of Two and a Half Men thrived on the chemistry between the 3 leads. Jake Harper was the perfect foil to both Charlie and Alan. As a dim-witted but sweet-hearted kid, Jake brought innocence and unfiltered comedy to nearly every scene he was in. He wasn't just the half in the show's title, he was the balance between Charlie's immaturity and Alan's neuroticism. However, as Jake grew older, the show slowly started to lose touch with how to write him. By the time Jake hit his teenage years, the Two and a Half Men writers began leaning hard into making him a one-note character. His charm and likability were gradually replaced with punchlines centered on his stupidity. Rather than evolve him into a more complex teen navigating life with 2 wildly different father figures, Two and a Half Men began using Jake as a lazy joke machine. His role became reduced to grunting, snacking, and saying dumb things. Yes, this was sometimes funny, but it grew increasingly and unignorably hollow with each passing season. This creative choice reflected a larger problem: the writers didn't know how to let Jake grow up. As his innocence faded, so did the show's emotional center. Even before Charlie Sheen left the show in 2011, Two and a Half Men had already made a critical mistake that contributed to its downfall. By failing Jake and minimizing his role, the show lost one of its most crucial dynamics. The decision didn't just affect Jake, it weakened the entire premise. That's when the slow unraveling truly began, setting the stage for a bigger collapse down the line that many still wrongly blame solely on Sheen's departure. Jake was the heart of Two and a Half Men, the show didn't work without him. Jake was the emotional anchor who brought Alan and Charlie together. Angus T. Jones as Jake Harper in Two and a Half Men. It's easy to remember Two and a Half Men as a sitcom about 2 wildly mismatched brothers. However, in its best years, the heart of the show wasn't just the adult banter, it was Jake. Angus T. Jones gave the character a grounded sweetness that balanced the absurdity of the adults around him. Many of Two and a Half Men's early plotlines revolved around Alan and Charlie having to work together to raise Jake, even if they didn't always agree on how to do it. That dynamic gave the show a unique flavor, chaotic, crude, but strangely warm. Without Jake, there was no real reason for Alan and Charlie to live together or put up with each other. Their constant clashes were funny, but Jake was the glue. Whether it was Charlie reluctantly attending a school function or Alan desperately trying to be a good dad, their character arcs often funneled through Jake's needs. His presence gave the show heart and a sense of family. The moment Jake's role diminished, the emotional core of Two and a Half Men started to vanish. Later seasons of Two and a Half Men tried to recapture that heart by introducing new characters and romantic arcs, but nothing quite worked. When Jake started becoming a background character, and, eventually, disappeared, it left the show feeling hollow. It wasn't just that viewers missed Jake, the problem was much deeper than that. Without Jake, the setup of Two and a Half Men no longer made sense. Long before Charlie Sheen exited, the show had already lost the one character who gave it heart and narrative purpose. In that sense, what really ruined Two and a Half Men wasn't Sheen's departure, it was Jake's. Two and a Half Men eventually had to move on without Jake. The show never fully recovered after Angus T. Jones left as a series regular. Jake with a blowtorch in Two and a Half Men. Angus T. Jones officially left Two and a Half Men after season 10, though his presence had already been significantly reduced during the previous season. Off-screen, Jones had grown increasingly uncomfortable with the show's content, eventually making headlines for calling it filth and denouncing it as incompatible with his religious beliefs. CBS and Chuck Lorre's team didn't write Jake out with much ceremony. He joined the army off-screen, and that was that. The show tried to plug the gap with new characters. Ashton Kutcher's Walden was a tech billionaire with no real ties to Alan, and his inclusion never quite replicated the original family dynamic. Later seasons introduced Amber Tamblyn as Jenny, Charlie's long-lost daughter, in an attempt to recapture the half element. While she had moments of charm, the show's chemistry had already shifted too far from its original DNA. Despite attempts to reinvent itself, 2.5 Men could never fully recover from losing Jake. He wasn't just another character, he was the catalyst that forced Alan and Charlie to coexist and evolve. Once that premise was gone, the show lost more than just laughs, it lost its reason to exist. Charlie Sheen's exit may have been more explosive, but what truly ruined 2.5 Men was losing the character that gave the show its soul.